and welcome back to another episode of Minority Reportz podcast and digital series. I am your host, Mona Sheikh. You guys, I'm very proud because I voted. That's right, as an American. I practiced my freedom. I want to keep my freedom, so I voted, you guys. So I hope you guys are going out there and voting and not wasting your vote, because your votes count. They count. It means something. We have to hold on to our democracy is what I'm trying to get at. Anyways, today's guest is fabulous. Okay, his resume is like a mile long. If I start reading his resume, that's like an hour long. So that's too long. I'm just going to give you a brief intro about this amazing guest we have today. He's an award-winning writer and director. His films have been screened at many of the top festivals around the world, and he is the director of the new movie that is going to be coming out soon called Evil Eye with Sarita Chaudhary and Sunita Mani, and I'm very excited about it. Please welcome Rajeev Dassani. Rajeev, welcome, my friend. How are you?
Hi there. Very well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Man, I'm reading your resume and I'm like, yeah, I gotta take a nap. Like,
I totally hear you. Yeah, I'm a bit of a workaholic, and I have to admit, it is. There's a lot of things I do, a lot of hats I wear. It's hard not to kind of keep on trucking, but I enjoy it. So thank you.
I mean, it's amazing. Now, Rajeev, you and your brother are twins.
We are, yeah. We actually write and direct together, so we're like a directing team. So we co-directed. My brother Rajeev Dassani, we co-directed Evil Eye together. But we're identical twins. We look exactly the same, except that he has long hair right now. So if you see like a making of the film, you'll see I have the short hair, he's got the long hair. That's how you tell us apart. So
is that on purpose? So there's no confusion? Is that what that's for?
I think so. Yeah. He grew it long a couple of years ago, and it just kind of stuck, and it made sense, because when we were younger, people would confuse us constantly. So it made sense to kind of like have a differentiation.
Got it. And so who's older?
I'm older by 6 minutes. So
6 minutes. Oh, wow.
Very small amount of time. Yeah.
he wasn't ready for it. It's usually like a minute or 3 minutes. He's like,
that's right.
Like 6 minutes.
Exactly.
Is he late? Is he late to everything, Rajeev, or what's his deal?
I think I'm more late than he is, ironically. So I think there's like kind of like a mixed bag of it,
Got it.
Yeah.
And now you guys are born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah, we were born in Nashville, but we grew up in North Carolina. So I grew up in like Raleigh and went to college at UNC Chapel Hill. So like, yeah, I'm very much a Southern boy, and I mean, I love it over there, and it was really wonderful to kind of be out there. But I came out to California about 10 years ago, and honestly, I really love it here. And it's honest. I mean, I really enjoy living on the West Coast and have ever since. So it's been fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, the lifestyle in Los Angeles is it's almost unfair how much everyone is doing. It's almost like a na to the rest of the country.
It is true. I've definitely been known to, like during the wintertime, like send screenshots of my weather app to my friends in New York or Toronto when it's like frigid cold and snowing, and they see it's like, it's like 85 here and we're going to the beach, and so.
Precisely. As someone who grew up in New York City, I mean, look, I was done with New York City. I'm like, no more. I don't.
Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Don't invite me in the summer and don't invite me in the winter. I am not showing up.
Yeah, it's very intense. I mean, I enjoy the snow, but only for short periods of time. I'm not someone who wants to kind of live in those locales, to be honest. So I very much, California is a very ideal climate for me.
I mean, yeah, LA is perfect because you went to USC, right?
I did, yeah. So when I came out here, I went to USC for film school, for grad school. And basically, it was really an amazing experience. I absolutely loved being there. And so many of my classmates are now filmmakers and executives and CEOs. I mean, it's so crazy. I just pitched on a TV series where the head of television at this big studio was like someone that we were just like palling around. She produced my like short film at USC. So I love that. That's kind of what LA gives you. It's like you sort of have these networks blossom. It's been great.
Yeah. I mean, did your brother go to USC too?
He didn't. We kind of, we didn't plan it this way, but it ended up working out really well. So when I came out, I went to school, and he essentially started working in the industry directly. So he was working for doing graphics on TV sets and doing various things. And so when I got out of USC, he had made all these connections to producers and line producers and all different people, directors in the business itself. So we kind of merged like my skills and my contacts from school with his contacts from like working on sets, and that also honestly served us really well. We ended up kind of being able to leverage that to a lot of different. I mean, part of why our resume is so long is we worked in a lot of TV shows over the years through both of our connections, which has been really, really great. So
yeah, I mean that's amazing. And does he live in LA too, or where does he live?
He does, yeah, he does. He lived in Toronto for quite a few years because we were working on the show Covert Affairs that was shooting in Toronto. So, and we were both doing a lot of work on it. So I was in LA, he was in Toronto for like I think 4 or 5 years. But he's now back in LA, and now and of course this year it's been a bit different because of COVID. So everyone's kind of trapped where they are, so to speak. So
man, COVID has just really changed everything. Rajeev, how much of a difference are you feeling that COVID has had the impact? Of course, I mean, look, I can tell you as a stand-up comic, like all my shows are canceled, my tours are canceled. Sure. It's really kind of decimated my business. How has it been for you guys?
Sure, yeah. It's been very intense. I mean, honestly, it really has affected the industry in a huge way. We got very lucky in that we finished shooting right before kind of quarantine dropped. So we basically finished shooting. We were able to do most of our editing with our editor, Christina Grobler. But basically,
he's gonna come back.
Basically, just around when we lost post in all our sound and color post over like Zoom and web chat and like that kind of thing. So that was really intense. In terms of the industry itself, it's been tough. I mean, I think everyone is with this weird mix because we do a lot of work for the streaming services. So Amazon, Netflix, these companies, they've had a huge boom because everyone's at home watching TV. But at the same time, it's been much more difficult to shoot. Doing sets in general, it's been harder. All the protocols and quarantines. So in that sense, it's become very complicated to set up a movie, to shoot a TV series. So we are working on things, but everything is harder. Everything's more expensive. And also a lot of things have been developing. So a lot of scripts being written, a lot of TV series being developed. But all the streaming services now have kind of a backlog of scripts and of shows that they've developed. So it's more difficult than it's been to sell to them, whether movies or TV series. So that's kind of been the hardest part, is just trying to figure out how to navigate this new world. So. Right.
I mean, I would think that they would want scripts that are more pandemic friendly, like that are like a lot easier to read, right? I mean, it's just like, I have my acting coach / and she's also become a friend, and she was telling me she landed. She's also an actress. She landed a commercial, and literally did Zoom with her. They sent her all the equipment, and her and her husband were the production people. Like they paid her for it. They paid her for their time, for all the production setup and stuff. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, is this the future? Like,
sure, yeah. It's a real double-edged sword because you're absolutely right. A lot of things are being shot and set up that are relatively easy to shoot in the sense of like very contained with very few people. There's not a lot of scripts being greenlit right now that have like big crowd scenes or really intense love scenes. But I think on the flip side, I think what's hard for creatives like myself and a lot of showrunners and directors and writers is that we want to be free and creative, and it's hard to be limited. It's hard to kind of say to ourselves, okay, we're only going to do things that are set in very tight locations, and you're only going to do things without kissing or without like love. And it's that kind of thing where it's been filmmaking's always been about restriction and about kind of knowing there's certain things you can and can't do. But I think it has been difficult to kind of face that. And I'm truly hoping that this isn't like a forever thing. I'm truly hoping this is this year and next year, and then we kind of get back to more regular filmmaking. Because it is, it's I mean, like I miss even basic things like, getting together in groups, going to a bar after the shoot, it's like just eating together at lunchtime. All these things are gone basically. And it's just a whole different world.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, we just live like, did you hear about Regal Cinema? Like all their thing is like going out of business. And I was like, okay, It's funny because a few years ago, I had a conversation with with a studio executive, and we were having this conversation. She told me that multiplexes were going to disappear in the next 10 years. And I feel like the pandemic has kind of expedited that process. Do you feel the same way, or what are your kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very tricky time. I mean, for theaters especially, it's a very difficult time because it's not a cheap business to run. And you're right, people are scared of going to the theaters. I totally understand. I love going to movie theaters. I love the theatrical experience. I'm really hoping that it doesn't go away. I mean, you're right, though, that it has been, the past couple of years has affected it very deeply. I mean, you've had, the onset of kind of streaming movies and kind of better quality television has made it so a lot of people are like, why do I want to spend this much money to go out? What I hope will happen is that I hope we kind of have a distinct theatrical experience that's for certain kind of movies. Like, I do want to see Tenet on a huge screen. I do want to see Avengers Endgame on a huge screen. A lot of smaller indie movies, I'm okay watching them at home. I will admit, though, I will miss the kind of audience experience. I love seeing an intimate drama with an audience. And I think that I hope there's room for that. I don't think it's going to go away, but I think it will change. I think it has to adapt to the times. And I actually think this pandemic may actually force the theatrical business to kind of like adjust itself to kind of fit the new world. And hopefully it'll be good, but I truly hope it doesn't. I don't think it'll die, but it will change. So,
I mean, I'm thinking like people like projector. I mean, giant TVs used to be so expensive. Now they're like next to nothing, right? You can get like 72, 75 inch for, I don't know, $600, $500, right?
Right.
Of course, you'll never have that same experience as like going to the Dome at ArcLight in the middle of Hollywood, Ooh, Rajeev got a little stuck.
Right.
You'll never have that experience. Am I stuck? Oh my, Rajeev.
No. You're good.
I just wanted to see how good my acting chops were. Sure. But I'm not. Just my mouth is running and everything else is stuck. That'd be hilarious. Like, Mona, did you just have a stroke on camera? It's like, maybe. What happened?
Sure, yeah, exactly. Yeah. The thing with theatrical is that I think that the key, though, for me is that it's not really, to me, about the size of the screen. To me, it's really about the audience. I think that's why, some of the real proponents of theatrical really love it. I think Christopher Nolan doesn't want you to be going to a theater because it's a huge screen. I think it's because he wants you to kind of like experience it. Like, I love hearing the gasps of awe or the gasps of joy or laughter or fear. Doing horror films, you're doing them to experience the reaction. Like, something I love more than hearing an audience react in the way that I hope they would react in a theater. And I really miss that more than anything else. I'm really sad that Evil Eye is going to be a online premiere and not a premiere.
Yeah.
I have to say they're doing an amazing job sort of changing the experience, and it's been kind of incredible watching Amazon's kind of marketing machine create this experience. It's been amazing, but it is quite different than it would have been. It's quite different, than the usual red carpet and stuff. Yeah.
I mean, I agree with you. Rajeev, I think the parallel for that would be for me performing at a comedy club or performing in a bigger audience, right? Zoom shows will never, ever come even close to what it's like to get up on stage and interact with an audience of 400 and 800 and 1,000 and 5,000. It will just never compare to it. I recently got, just 2 days ago, yesterday, I got invited to a brand new comedy club that's being built out. It's like top notch, top line. And they were like, you're the first comedian to step on stage.
Wow.
Baptized, right? I wasn't performing. I was just there to check the venue out and just stepping on stage. And I was like, yeah, you can't, there is no substitution for this. I don't care how awesome the Zoom shows are. So I feel like that's the equivalent of that. I wanted to actually ask you, Rajeev, how the two Desi kids who were born in Tennessee and then grew up in Raleigh are just like, you know what, we're twins and we both want to be filmmakers. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. We just loved movies. I mean, it's like one of those things where I think we we are twins in the sense that we have very similar sensibilities. Both of us were artists. Both of us love storytelling. We love film and the idea of filmmaking. And I think, it felt crazy. It felt insane. I mean, obviously we're Indian. We're first-gen Indian kids. So, I mean, our parents were very much like, gently pushing us toward engineering and being a doctor, being, like those kind of things, like the usual story. Yeah,
No
I know.
way.
I know. It's shocking. But I have to say they were also very supportive, when they figured out that we were sort of not going in that direction. And I mean, it is funny. I think our parents, to this day, they sort of still don't entirely understand how the business works. The scariest thing about this business for a Desi parent is that your paychecks are not consistent. Like you don't get like a monthly, fee or like, salary. It's like per project, and they're like, wait, so you've spent how many months developing this and they haven't paid you yet? And like, it's very funny. But I think what's been nice is that as we've kind of had some success and worked with some really great, companies like Netflix and Amazon, they've seen that, okay, like this is not like a game. We're not hobbyists. Like we're professionals. And I think they sort of now understand it sort of, but they still get kind of freaked out. And it's like, and I think it's one of those things where it's like, I weirdly, I think Evil Eye has been particularly good though, because they obviously know who Priyanka Chopra Jonas is, and she executive produced our film. And I think that more than anything else was our parents are like massive fans. So they were just like honestly, much more than working with Amazon or Netflix. It was like, you worked with Priyanka Chopra Jonas. Like that was the thing that was like, okay, they've actually like made it. So
it's a stamp of validation. That's because that's something you can understand. That's a point of reference to
exactly.
get. Exactly. That's so interesting. I thought that if Priyanka was going to executive produce it, I thought she would want to star in it too. But that's interesting that Sunita Mani is the one who's the lead in it.
Yeah, I mean, she, the reality is Priyanka has a huge slate of movies that she's starring in, and working on, development wise. So I actually think was just too busy. It's like something where she's in The Matrix and she's in the new, the new Amazon series Citadel, and I think it's like something where she has aspirations to produce movies beyond just her own, performances, which I think is really, really, it makes a lot of sense. Like her brand is much more than just her performance. It's kind of to her credit, she has a commitment, I think, to elevating South Asian voices and really elevating a new, these kind of things. And I really give her a lot of credit for supporting a film like this, because it's really, a lot of people are excited, and it's been fantastic to be able to, I don't know how a film like this could have been made even 5 years ago. And I think, now it's like the fact that it can be made today is really incredible, and you're made and on a major platform and given a huge audience is really, it's amazing. So.
I mean, when I watched the trailer, I love Sunita Mani. I think she was so great. And,
she's amazing.
Yeah, she's great. She's so talented.
Yeah.
And of course, growing up with like Savita Chaudhary, watching her in Mississippi Masala with Denzel Washington. If you guys haven't seen that movie, I'm telling the audience that you guys should totally watch Mississippi Masala.
Sure.
It's the first time an Indian girl defies and wants to date a black dude. It's awesome.
It's an amazing movie. Absolutely. Mira Nair directing, amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys direct together, so you are like co-directing. How has that been for you guys? Like, if you guys go into conflicts, you're just like,
sure, yeah.
Lunch break, you're like, you in that corner, me in this corner.
That's interesting. It's so funny you asked that, because this was our first feature film that we directed together, and like the first thing we kind of had to figure out crazily was who would say action on set. So like initially we were trading on. What's funny is that what's funny is that worked really badly. That did not work at all. So then we had to we got to figure out a different system. So we ended up doing per scene. So like the morning scene, he would say action. The afternoon scene, I would say action. And and then beyond that, I think what's been really nice about it is that most directors kind of work alone. Like they have their collaborators around them. The cinematographer and the production designer. But in our case, we have each other. So even though we our tastes are very similar, but we would often disagree. And in those times, we would kind of like quickly powwow and figure out, okay, why do you want to do it this way? Why do I want to do it that way? And usually we'd actually find that by discussing it together, we'd actually reach a better place. Like we'd figure out, oh wait, there's actually like a better way to do this even than either of us thought of. And that was really nice to have someone to kind of test everything against every single time. Although a lot of the time we disagreed, and talking to the actors was very easy. It was never really, there was no ego about it. It's just sometimes it'd be him, sometimes it'd be me. It didn't matter. It's like if one of us had something to say, we would just say it. And I think it was a very smooth process. It also helped that we were working with pros. I mean, these are our 4 leads. All of our actors are amazing, but our 4 leads they're just very experienced. Sarita's been on so many sets. Sunita's done amazing work, and Bernard is very experienced. Omar, they just knew what they were doing, and so there was no hand holding needed. Like all of them were really just like got it almost immediately, and any directions we were given were fairly minor. Which is fantastic.
Where did you guys shoot? Did you guys shoot this in the South somewhere in LA? What was it?
Yeah, we shot almost entirely in New Orleans. Actually one of the challenges of the film is that the film is set half in New Orleans and half in Delhi. But we shot all of the Delhi interior scenes in New Orleans. And so we were actually, our production designer, Ryan Al-Dwyer, had to basically dress locations in New Orleans to look like India. So it was quite wild. I mean, like in terms of the amount of set dressing and props, and even things like he and his team 3D printed special plugs to look like the plugs in India, and like put them on the walls, and like it was really, really wild to see the transformation.
The detail.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you see our sets, like our sets were empty, barren spaces before he came in. So the walls were painted, the floors were put down, like all of the sets were custom designed from scratch. So it was really, really an amazing transformation to walk in and kind of see what he had done. And it was great. But it was New Orleans is a fantastic place. The crews are amazing. We loved it. So.
Yeah. And this is what, while you guys are shooting the New Orleans part, like the American part, the Indian part is being built out?
Basically, yeah, that's pretty much. Although actually, it was actually the reverse. We ended up shooting most of the Indian part first, just for like scheduling reasons. So it was really, during pre-production, we were prepping all of it, and so we ended up shooting most of Sarita and Bernard's scenes first, and then Sunita and Omar's. And what was interesting is, like the majority of the film actually occurs over phone calls. The original audio play that was written by Madhuri Shekhar was actually entirely phone calls. It was all phone calls, mostly between India and America. So one of our challenges in the film was, first of all, how to make phone calls cinematic, and then 2, how to even shoot the scenes, because often you would have Sarita doing a scene, a very intense emotional scene opposite her daughter, but Sunita was not on set. So, Sunita had not even arrived in New Orleans yet. So we actually had another actress, this woman, Tosh Dur, who was fantastic, play the opposite parts, opposite the actors. So she played kind of Sunita's part against Sarita. And then when we did Sunita's scene, she then played Sarita's part against Sunita. It was quite wild to watch. But it all kind of worked out really, really well in the end. And it fit together really closely. But it was quite a challenge to kind of make it all function. So.
I mean, it looks amazing. I know that Blumhouse has been really stepping up their game. Like they were really just stepping up their game. I am not a big horror fan, but I do love good suspenseful films. I did love was it The Reckoning or something like, I forget where they go into, the family goes into this haunted house and it takes over the mother's body and she wants to kill her children. And it's based on a true story. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And my mom was like, why are you watching this? And I was like, oh my God, my storytelling is so good. Like, you got to watch it.
Absolutely.
When you guys sit down, like, I want to talk about Jinn, mainly because Jinn is something that, I grew up in Pakistan, right? So I was born in Pakistan. I was there till I was 15. And we really, in Islam and in Muslim culture, Jinn is a very big part of our existence, like storytelling. It's like, that's how our parents terrorize us. They're like, if you don't finish a glass of milk, Jinn is gonna come, and I'm like, I'm lactose intolerant. Stop shoving it down my throat. Like,
got it.
There's gonna be a massive accident waiting to happen. Forget the Jinn. I think even the Jinn would run away because of the accident. Like, don't make me do this. But I feel like Jinn is a very big part, and a lot of people don't know Jinn are just kind of these, I don't know, these beings, these entities that could be good or could be bad, And initially, when I came across it, I skipped through it because I got scared, and I was like, oh my god, that's
sure.
And then
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? I have a friend of mine. He's obsessed with horror. That's all he watches. He watches horror and falls asleep. I'm like, there is something wrong with you. Like,
right.
Who does that? So he was like, you gotta watch Jinn. Jinn is really well done. And I was like, okay. I started watching him, and I was like, this is really good storytelling. Like, this is
very cool.
It's amazing. How did you guys even get interested in it? Because you guys wrote the script, you guys wrote it, directed it, right?
So we Jinn is a complicated one because we wrote it working with other writers who were in Jordan and Lebanon, and then we actually worked with directors. So we didn't actually direct that series. In that case, we worked with a director out of Lebanon, Mirjan Buchaya, and then another director, Amin Metalka. So the two of them actually directed the episodes on that one. It's like part of that is because we don't speak Arabic actually. And so it was entirely in Arabic. So it was kind of this interesting challenge. But I think kind of where it came from is Ilana and I have done a lot of work in Jordan prior to Jinn. So we worked on the show Star Trek Discovery and shot their Jordan unit for the pilot. And we shot with Covert Affairs, and we shot another film of our own, Seam, that was shot in Jordan. And while there, we basically got to know the crews, got to know the culture, and kind of fell in love with it. It's a wonderful country, both for its people as well as its culture, but also just to shoot in. Like it's production value is amazing. It looks beautiful, and obviously we heard a lot of stories about Jinn. And as we were kind of looking to do our first series, we thought, wouldn't it be amazing to kind of take these, as you said, kind of beliefs where people are very scared of this kind of thing, but then apply it to this kind of like supernatural teen type of show, but use it doing kind of, a lot of our intent was to tell a very authentic to the Arab world show. So we interviewed, dozens of teenagers in Jordan, asking about their lives, like what do they do after school, and like what do they care about, and a lot of the things that we learned were very similar to teens all over the world, like caring about homework and crushes and like all that kind of stuff, and mixing that together with the Jinn mythology, which we kind of then researched quite a bit on, was a really cool challenge. And it's what I love most about filmmaking, is learning about another culture and then trying to represent it in a very authentic way, but still giving it a very fun to watch commercial spin. I mean, that's kind of all of what we do, is like authentic stories with a fun genre spin. And I love being able to do that. And Jinn was really exactly that. And it was a lot of fun. And the actors we found in Jordan were absolutely fantastic. I'm so proud of them. For most of them, it was their very first professional acting job, which was really, really great to see. And it was like, I thought they did amazing work.
The kids killed it. They were amazing.
They were great. I agree.
Every kid was amazing. I was like, oh my God, these kids are just so friggin' talented. Did you, Rajeev, grew up in your kind of Desi culture? And by the way, for the non-brown people watching this, Jinn is not the alcohol or the liquor that you're thinking of. It's not G-I-N, it's J-I-N-N. Okay, it's about these entities that kind of float around. We believe we kind of grew up with a belief system that there are two kinds of Jinn. Where there is fear and there is pain, Jinn shows up in those places. We were told that as kids, not to, when the sun is setting, not to eat anything sweet and go outside because the jinns come and take over your body. Not to stand under trees while the sun is setting. Like when you're passing through an area that makes bricks where there's a lot of heat, jinns exist and live in those places. Like crazy, like weird stuff that you kind of did your parents kind of tell you about? Did you grow up in that kind of Desi environment about Jinn?
Honestly, no. Jinn was not at all a part of my childhood or like upbringing at all. I mean, my parents are both Indian, grew up in India, but I think they were raised Hindu, and I don't know that Jinn in that sense are part of. I'm not sure about this, but I don't think they're really a big part of Indian culture. I think a lot of the kind of mythological kind of folklore features in India are. I mean, there are some very scary ones, but I think they're different ones. There's a Blumhouse series called Betal that kind of deals with a certain type of scary figure, and it's very cool. By the way, if you haven't seen it, it's like think like kind of Indian zombies meets military, and I think it's like something like, I haven't seen it yet, but it's something like British soldiers from colonial times like rising up in the Indian jungles. It's super cool. So yeah.
Is it on Netflix? What is it on?
It's on Netflix. Yeah. So it's a Blumhouse series for Netflix India basically, and it's very wild. So
what's it called?
Betal, Betaal. Watch the trailer. It's super cool. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, but it's. So.
Let me ask you this: when you guys are researching the Jinn mythology and about jinns and everything, is it freaking you guys out? You're like, what is this creepy stuff?
Well, I mean, you like some of the research we did was pretty wild. So, my brother attended an exorcism actually outside in the village in Petra, and that was apparently he said it was terrifying. He said it was absolutely wild because there was like a girl who was supposedly had a Jinn trapped inside her, and like there was a local shaman basically who was like overseeing it and saying crazy all kinds of wild things, and it was like he said it was very wild to watch, but it was. I mean, he said it felt very real and felt very kind of scary watching sort of this girl's back arch and just all of the wild things that were happening. So we kind of like we definitely knew that this was a very real, believed concept in the Arab world, and we wanted to kind of use that to our advantage because it was simultaneously to both be a scary series, but also speak to any horror when done well speaks to primal fears, but all types of things in our life. I mean, I think horror can be used to speak to fears of being good enough for society, being good enough for your parents, to fear of like being alone. Like it's like that. It's speaking to those deeper ideas about society. It's why I think horror is so much more than just being scary. It's about kind of tapping into something and commenting on it. And so through Jinn, we were commenting on conflict. We had different Jinn with kind of different philosophies based on we look back at like we almost thought about one Jinn as sort of like a Roman era Jinn versus like a sort of a more Greek era Jinn, and I mean it sounds wild, but like thinking about the different governmental philosophies and how they went about kind of like manipulating and using our teenagers was very much part of our thought process in thinking about it. And also it was great because our local team, so the writers and directors and producers who were in Jordan and Lebanon really brought a lot to the table. They brought their own childhood experiences of Jinn and their cultural understanding to the table to kind of speak to it and be very authentic about it. And that was lovely to be able to kind of work with them together. It was really, really great. So.
That's amazing. I mean, it's just, and what got you guys even interested in Jinn? Like, did you just come across it by accident? Some friends told you about it? Like, what you were like, what? This sounds really creepy. Let's do this.
That's a good question. I mean, really, it was just being in Jordan. I've done a lot of shooting in the Wadi Rum, which is sort of this massive, incredible kind of desert canyon area of Jordan. It's where they shot The Martian with Matt Damon, where they've shot a bunch of really wild, kind of often alien planets, actually, because it's such a wild place. But there's a lot of stories about Jinn in this area. It's a very kind of desolate canyon, and when you're there, you're sort of out alone, and there's nothing around you for like dozens of miles. And the Bedouins who kind of help you while you're shooting there told us stories basically about kind of like, oh, that rock over there, you got to be careful because there's like Jinn who will people have wandered off and like fallen off cliffs because of that they hear the Jinn coming. And so we heard a lot of these amazing stories from the Bedouin tribes we worked very closely with, because you they help you navigate these regions. And when we shot in Petra as well. We also worked with some, froze for a second. No, it was really, but
and now I'm just like, are there jinns around me now? Like, what's going on?
Exactly.
Are the jinns making this? What's happening?
Exactly. It is kind of hard to do a series like that and not start to sort of believe in it or see it, because you sort of, there is such a belief, and you sort of get a sense that I read a book that talked about how, like, the belief is that jinn are the cause, are the kind of root of all mythological creatures. So it talked about how, like, the vampire mythology, the werewolf mythologies, and even angels and demons really are all just jinn in different forms. And there's some very wild stories. Having worked on that series for a year, I did some very deep dives into, like, jinn culture and jinn beliefs. I know more about jinn than you could imagine.
Are you usually around people when you do this? So you're just like, so I'm not entirely freaking myself out. Let me just get some people around me.
Exactly. So it is funny. It's hard to work with Blumhouse and not to somewhat start to believe in ghosts, because it's like, part of the fun of working with Blumhouse is that they're just so knowledgeable about this genre. So it's like, just like, whenever we were working on like any part of the film with them, it was like very, like, they just know this world, and they know so much about all these different, like, ghostly apparitions, that it was like, sometimes it'd be like, actually in this story we talked about this, and it was like, this is wild. So
did it at some point while you guys are shooting, and so are you also getting a little freaked out? Also, are you beginning to kind of buy into it and having some nightmares? Are you guys kind of experiencing that? What's that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, there is some of that, especially, depending on what you're shooting and when. Like, when you shoot a very creepy scene, and especially when you shoot a creepy scene in a very creepy location, things do happen. Like, for example, shooting in Petra for Jinn, we spent about 3 weeks shooting in Petra, and it is a massive city carved out of the rocks. And so shooting all night in these canyons, like, when you're trying to make your way back to the base camp or back to the catering tent or something, you're walking across, like, stairs and rocks that were carved like 4,000 years ago. We shot in a cave shaped like a skull. That was like walls.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Someone carved these walls, like, long before, basically, like, Jesus. And it's like a very strange experience to be standing there looking at it at night with nothing around you and no sound. And it's creepy.
So I'll tell you some of the creepy stuff that we've experienced growing up in Pakistan. So in 1985, our family made a tour. We did a whole tour of Pakistan in my dad's car, right? It's me, my 4 older brothers. I'm the youngest and the only girl. So it's 5 kids, my parents. And we are literally going from, like, Karachi to Lahore to Islamabad. And then we're going out to these really crazy rural parts of Pakistan that you have to be batshit crazy to explore. I don't know why the hell. My dad was like, we're going to have a vacation. I'm like, this is a death trap. Like, what?
Gotcha.
And I remember our car getting stuck in this tiny little river. And it's just 5 of us and my mom and my dad. And we can't seem to get the car out, and the sun is setting. And we're like, if we're stuck here, like, we're screwed. Like, I don't know how we're going to get through this. So my mom has always been a very religious person. So she's sitting there and she's doing all these prayers. And these 2 guys show up, completely faces covered. You cannot see their faces, just their tiny little eyes. And they're like, what's going on? And my dad's like, we're stuck. We're with the children and we don't know what to do. And they're like, no problem. We'll help you lift the car out, right? They lift the car to help us get to the other side. And my dad goes to them, what are you out here for at this hour? Because the sun's setting. And they're like, oh, we're looking to shoot birds. To get birds. At, like, sunset?
Interesting.
Right? And as we're, like, getting in the car and we're driving off, we can't find them. They're nowhere to be found. We turn around, we can't find them, right? And my mom tells all these kind of like these spooky stories, you know. I remember again, we were passing through and got stuck in front of this river, right? This river, nighttime, roaring river, right? So my dad goes, let me see how powerful the river is. So he ties a rope around his waist, ties it on the bumper of the car, and tries to get near turns the headlights on. I remember this so distinctly. And he's trying to step into the water. And as he's about to step into the water, he sees a giant tire of a truck rolling through.
Oh my gosh.
So this fucking river swallowed a truck at some point.
Oh my gosh.
So we are stuck, and we're
very
like,
scary.
how are we gonna get through this? Like, we're stuck, right? We don't know how to get through this. And so we're sitting there, and we had literally nothing to eat. And what had happened was that my parents had picked up these giant melons they were selling for like next to nothing. So all we have are these melons. So my mom gets out of the car, super dark. It's like kind of like what you're describing, how Jordan is. She gets out of the car. They get these melons out of the trunk. They're cutting them up. We have the windows rolled down, and this huge tarantula crawls into the car.
Oh my gosh. And
we are freaking the fuck out. We're like, we are gonna die. Like, the tarantula's gonna kill us. And
oh my gosh, that's wild.
My mom does this thing, so bizarre, Rajeev. She looks at the tarantula. She's like, I know you're not a tarantula. She goes, I know you're not a spider. I know you are a Jinn. I know you're a Jinn, and I know you're, but I know that you don't mean us harm. So I'm going to ask you to please leave because you're freaking my children out. So please leave. I swear to God, Rajeev, the tarantula just crawls out and just leaves.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's like crazy stuff. You know, you're just like. So when I came across your series, I was like, I must watch this immediately. Now, I know that there was a lot of controversy that got built around it. You know, which really breaks my heart because it really did show teenage life. Like, we want to think about, you know, how maybe predominantly Muslim countries and how teenagers behave. Teenagers are freaking teenagers everywhere. They're rebelling. They're finding them, discovering about themselves. They're discovering relationships. You know, there's a lot going on. What was that like, Rajeev? Like when Jinn comes out, you receive this amazing messages from you know, all these you know, from the Arab world. They're just like, oh, finally somebody's like showcasing our life and showing the world. And then this crazy controversy shows up. What, from the adults, from the government? Who has the problem, Rajeev? Who has the problem?
I mean, you're absolutely right that's the balance that was basically struck. I mean, we did receive hundreds, thousands of messages from teenagers across the Arab world, young people saying, like, we've never seen ourselves kind of represented on camera in this way. You know, I mean, really, no one had really ever put teenagers in the Arab world on a major network like this. You know, I mean, we literally had messages from people in like Korea and Brazil and all kinds of places being like, I've never, like, literally changing their attitudes about like, wow, I had no idea that teenagers in Jordan would be just like me and have the same kind of problems. I think where the controversy really stemmed from, you're right, I think primarily came from a more conservative side, more adult side of, you know, of Europe, especially in Jordan, which, you know, and Jordan is a very interesting country because it is one of the more progressive Arab countries, but it does have a very, you know, conservative side as well. And I think what was the most heartbreaking, believing that there's a very fine balance between being respectful of the culture, but also being authentic and kind of being provocative and being interesting and breaking boundaries, I think is important. But I do think there is a responsibility, you know, to be respectful. And I think it was a very difficult line to walk. And I can't really say for certain that we walked it, you know, I mean, correctly, given that there was a big outcry. I mean, the outcry, I think, primarily came from, I think the message that it was the hardest to see was Jordanian adults, certain adults online saying, like, our teens don't act like this. Like, our teens don't kiss each other. Our teens don't drink. Our teens don't, you know, various things. And I think that was, you know, something where it's like, I just know for a fact because I literally witnessed it. I literally or didn't witness it, but I literally heard testimonials from teens of various different, because I think the other thing about Jordan too is that there is a difference in terms of the economic level of a school, and sort of in terms of how, it does tend to be that the slightly more affluent schools do tend to be a little bit more Western in the kind of how much men and women interact and dating and like that kind of thing. And I will say that we kind of modeled our series more on a more affluent school, because we wanted to kind of show this sort of slightly more kind of like I would say provocative side, you know what I mean? But it was never meant to, it was never, like we never designed it to be sort of we weren't trying to offend anybody. Our goal was simply to kind of represent what we heard and what we saw. And we really, so many teens, they asked us, they begged us really, like, just show us like having the same, like being like teens anywhere else, and the kind of interesting irony of it is that like other shows like, Game of Thrones is very popular in Jordan, Gossip Girl and Riverdale, and like these kind of shows are very popular in Jordan. So it's,
Game of Thrones?
It's very popular. So it's like, it's one of those things. See, this is the thing. No, because the thing about it is that I think what we kind of ran into is this sense that, it's totally fine as long as it's not our kids, so to speak. You know what I mean? So it's like, of course, American kids do all these things, but there was a sense from certain people, and honestly, I'll give a lot of credit to lots of people, I think, like didn't feel this way, but I think as tends to happen, it's that the loudest voices kind of are the ones that sort of, get heard. But there were plenty of other people very supportive who loved the series, and plenty of adults as well who said like, we totally appreciate that sort of like, like pushing back boundaries and like that kind of if we were to do it again, if we would change anything, what we would change. It's very hard to answer at this point, but I'm very proud of the series. I'm very proud of our actors, and I think we really, what we showed was teenagers in Jordan, and it's like something where, so yeah.
Look, I'm not Jordanian, but I am Muslim, right? And this is a kind of a through line, and this is something that I kind of make it very clear in my stand-up and when I get up on stage and to talk about, is this kind of this through line in predominantly Muslim nations, where the elders or the kind of the middle age or the elders of the culture, are somehow coming and dictating and telling young people what to think, how to think it, how to live their lives, and it's really holding them back, right? It's really kind of creating this friction where you're just like, you're depriving these young folks of a grand world, of this amazing potential that they have, and you're just suffocating that potential. You're suffocating that progress. You're suffocating that growth. Am I sad to hear it? Yes. Am I shocked to hear it? No. Right. Pakistan has there's a new series. I just had the director and the creator of the show. There's a show called Churails. Have you heard of the show Churails?
I don't know. No.
It translates to witches, and it's this British Pakistani guy who wrote it and directed it. And it's a massive hit in India and Pakistan. It's a massive hit. And they just banned it this 3 days ago. They just banned it in Pakistan.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
They banned it. They were like, it is immoral. Oh, it is so immoral.
What is it? What is it on? Which network, or like what?
It's on ZTV. It's on Z5. They call it. And the concept is basically about these 4 or 5 women that pretend like they're opening up like this store that sells burqas, but they're actually a private detective company that goes and finds women. The women come to them and say, my husband's cheating on me or whatever, and they go and beat the crap out of the guy. And they really, they really try to set the guy straight. And women were like, there was, because it really tackles misogyny and patriarchy and feminism and even LGBTQ. Like there's a lot of things, and it got banned. So it just really kind of, it breaks my heart. Man, I was so looking forward to season 2. I can't even tell you. I was
of Jinn. Oh yeah, I know. I mean that breaks my heart too. I have to say, because we definitely had had worked out some storylines. We definitely had some plans for season 2. The actors were very excited and ready for it. And it was too bad that we weren't able to do it, but it's I understand. I do hope, though, Netflix is currently in production on another series. Basically, they're called Al-Rabi School for Girls, with this amazing writer director Tima Shomali.
Okay. Rajiv's gonna come back.
But it's like I'll be very, very interested to watch that series. I'm very curious to see what lessons Netflix kind of derived, from our series. We felt very supported by Netflix the entire time. They were very behind us, and so I really believe that they are just trying to walk the line between doing interesting work, but also they do want to kind of satisfy their audience and keep their audience happy. And I think that is always going to be a bit of a line to walk in sort of some of these more conservative nations, just in terms of how do you sort of be provocative without being too provocative? How do you,
it's a hard balance. It's a tough balance.
It's very hard. Yeah. It'll be very difficult. But I think they learned a lot. I mean, and I think we were kind of the test subject because we were Netflix's first Arab series, and so I think in that sense, I'll be very curious to see kind of as they do more, and we certainly hope to be doing more as well. Both in the Arab world and just around the world. So I'll be curious to kind of see what happens. So
for sure.
You
already talked about that. No, I feel like you and Ilan, do you guys always work on the same projects together, or you kind of also go off, do your thing, and then he goes up and does this thing, and then you'll be like, hey, this project really seems interesting, let's work on this together.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, we in the past we've done a lot of work separately as well as together, but I think recently we have decided that we really are a team, and I think we sort of have I think there may come a point in the future when we decide to kind of work separately again, but at least for right now, we're really kind of focused on ourselves as a directing and writing duo. And so basically anything we're writing or directing right now, we're not writing and directing separately, honestly. And I think actually we both found that we're better for it. And I think we definitely have certain passion projects that I think in the future we'd love to do, kind of more just me or just him. But I think our hope is going to set ourselves up a little more strongly as a real kind of base. You know what I mean? And I think that that means doing a few more TV series, a few more movies, and once we kind of have more of a, because our hope is to actually establish a production company and be, our kind of best case scenario would be I'm sorry, I can't believe I can't remember their name. Anyway, they're absolutely amazing, but their company Agbo now produces films and TV series and all different things, and that's kind of ideally where we want to be getting to. Where we're producing things, we kind of have more of a base under us, and then we kind of go from there. So that's kind of what. So we have some projects that we're just producing right now that we're not necessarily writing or directing, even though that's primarily what we're doing. So
right. You guys also have a production company together, right?
Yeah. We do. It's funny. Our kind of background, even before doing Jinn and before doing Evil Eye, was producing a lot of international shoots for mainly TV series. So our company would produce and still produces shoots for shows like Master of None and Hannibal and Star Trek Discovery and Heroes, where basically when these shows wanted to shoot in, for example, Master of None in Italy, we produced their Italian unit, or Hannibal shoot in Florence, or Blind Spot shoot in Tokyo. We would kind of produce these units, and in some cases, most of the time, it was us producing the unit with our team at Master Keys. So then producer Rhett Giles would do quite a bit of it, but we would also sometimes direct units as well. So sometimes we would do second unit directing in foreign locations. So kind of depending on the show. And that's kind of so. And we really, what was wonderful is it really helped us understand how to kind of manage what a professional TV shoot kind of requires, which is kind of making your day, making your budget, and also often shooting in places that are very wild. I mean, like, doing a shoot in Sri Lanka when we had never shot there before, you have to kind of figure it out, like find the right team on the ground there and find out how do the crews work. And there's a lot of, like there's kind of a battle always to kind of figure out how does a particular place work, which I really enjoy. Like I love shooting internationally because there is something about going to a place you've never been before and kind of shooting a movie. It's amazing. So
yeah, I mean, you sound like you're more on like the critical thinking part, right? Like you like. And it's funny because I'm like that. Like I love to travel by myself. So like I'll go to Europe by myself and then just be in like a brand new city and then just be like, let's look at the map. How are we going to figure this out? Where are we going to go?
Yeah.
I love that. But that's a lot. I mean, it's still, yours is like a times 100 that of like, kind of corralling a crew together and what are the locations and being like,
what I think is like the best part about it is that I guess I'm someone who like, I mean, I'm such a workaholic and I know it's a problem, honestly.
It's not a problem. I'm a workaholic, but you say that.
It's one of the things,
stick together, man.
But in that sense, I think it's like I know it sounds crazy to say this, but like I would rather be landing in Paris with a very specific set of needs, like things I need to get done while in Paris. I'd rather be landing and being like, I need to do a walk and talk on a balcony overseeing the Seine River and then get off the plane and go figure out how to do that rather than just landing in Paris being like, I have a couple of days to hang out. Like I like having a task. And so I enjoy travel with a goal, and like that's been the best part about kind of shooting internationally is kind of, is like I very rarely travel without some specific work need in mind. And it's also kind of nice that it's always being paid for by the studio. So it's, so that's, that's not bad. Right.
When you get flown out and you get put up at the Ritz-Carlton and stuff, it's the best.
Exactly. You're absolutely right.
And then you're just like just hanging out.
That's absolutely right.
That is literally the best. No, I mean, Rajeev, when you guys, I mean, how old were you guys when you both look at each other and you're like, we're going to be filmmakers. Like, how old are you? 8?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, it was pretty young. I mean, we were kind of like messing with cameras and messing with visual effects and kind of like making, I remember in like middle school, we were starting to mess with like 3D software and we like shot this like crazy thing where like it was just us like running around and putting like giant robots stomping around behind us and, and just us and our goofy glasses and terrible like baggy jeans or whatever, that kind of thing. It was very young. And I just remember it was definitely, I do remember there was a professor in college that kind of changed. It was all kind of fun and games until this woman, Joan Darling, who's an acting professor who had done movies, and she actually directed one of the most famous episodes of the Mary Tyler Moore Show. But she was an amazing teacher, and she was the one who kind of like reset, I think, my brain in terms of going from this is playing around to this is a serious craft. And like I remember that moment very specifically of being like, okay, this is not a game. Like it's like this, professional filmmaking is a real skill that has to be developed and learned. And that's when it kind of went from fun and games to like, let's be real about this. This is a career that's going to be the rest of my life, basically. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that is always, for me, I didn't know. First of all, being a stand-up comic was like never part of the plan. It was just kind of like I just kind of fell into it, and then I was just like, I actually don't entirely suck when I go on stage. So this
right.
Might be okay. This might be doing okay.
Yeah.
Do you guys feel like whenever you guys work on projects, do you always kind of, do you kind of keep in mind trying to do projects that, speaks of cultures or have your culture background or other cultures, or are you guys more just interested, more story driven? Like if it's a story, it appeals to you, then you're going to write it.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I would say, like we are filmmakers of color, and I think there is a certain level of responsibility to try to do more diverse stories to be able to bring them to the fold. That said, I don't think that we don't aim to just do that. I mean, like, I think it's one of those things where Hollywood always tries to pigeonhole you. It will, many in Hollywood say, well, you're an Indian filmmaker, all you can do is Indian films, or you're a black filmmaker, all you can do is black films. And I think that's unfair in most cases. In most cases, people have broader interests. No one would ever say to a white male director, you can only do white male movies. And in that sense, like we just look for good stories. What I will say though is that Elon and I really believe in, like, we never approach a story, whether we're writing it or directing it or developing it, without finding a thematic core that we feel like is saying something about society that will somehow benefit society in some way. Like, we don't want to make preachy films, but there's no film that we make like we feel a really good movie is saying something about the world. Because it's kind of like my question with any movie is always going to be, why make this movie? Like, is the world better or worse without this movie in it? And I kind of feel like if you're not making a movie that somehow makes the world a little bit better, then you shouldn't be making it. That's kind of my very real belief. I mean, for example, in Jinn's case, we saw an opportunity to sort of show Jordanian teenagers in a way that the world had never seen before. So a kid in Ohio who's only seen teens in Homeland where they're playing terrorists suddenly is seeing them as like a kid who's like cares about his homework or is worried about a crush. With Evil Eye, we were very explicitly commenting on domestic abuse and trauma and kind of talking about the way that like the cycle of violence, like using reincarnation as a metaphor for like the cycle of abuse that women go through, and kind of making a very clear statement and stand on it. Like, it's something where, like, I really believe you can tell commercial, fun to watch genre like stories that will appeal to a broad audience and still say something real. And I think, and I don't really honestly enjoy films that say nothing. I mean, those films exist, but they're not really for me. I like films that say something, but I want to make commercial movies. I want to make films that like speak to, and there's certain filmmakers who I really admire who make films that are very accessible and say a lot. Denis Villeneuve's films, Alfonso Cuarón's films, Steven Spielberg, they really don't make, like, even Spielberg's most commercial movies have something to say at their core.
That's right.
They all have a lot of thematic depth, and I think that's not an accident. So
that's right. Rajeev, so I guess you're never gonna make a Sharknado or Dude, Where's My Car? So that's out.
Well, what's funny is that, like, I think there's some very silly movies that have some very serious things to say. So, like, you say that, but like, I think Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is actually a really interesting commentary on, like, desire to make an impact on the world. Like, it's something where you'd be surprised how the silliest movie could, like, I haven't seen Dude, Where's My Car in a long time, and I haven't seen Sharknado, so I don't know what it's about, but I know what you mean. But actually, it wouldn't surprise me if I do make a very broad comedy at some point, but I won't make it unless I feel like there is something to be done with it, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So, yeah.
I honestly really, I remember watching the trailer for Evil Eye, which I'm very, very excited to see. And it, not gonna lie, it definitely creeped me out. But I think it also creeped me out mainly because I grew up with a lot of domestic violence, right? Like, my mom grew up with a lot of domestic violence, and and I think for me, that scene where she's sitting and she's talking to her daughter, and she's like, and to me that resonated on it goes back to your point where you were saying about horror, of how it brings out these deep kind of rooted fears that you have about, your own person and your own persona and your characters and different things that you've grown up with. And although it's not like some creepy movie where it's like, there's blood and gore and that's like freaking you out, it's just so primal. It was so primal when I watched it that it freaked me out,
Oh, because, thanks. Yeah.
Because I am someone, who grew up with a lot of domestic violence. So it kind of resonated on a very deep level to me when I watched it. And I was like, whoa, this is some really deep stuff coming at me,
Absolutely.
Because,
what's interesting about that is that I think, like, something also about horror films, especially about topics like this, is that, like, I find that we always do a lot of research, because what you can find is you find deeper levels to the primal fear the more you kind of know about it. So, like, for example, domestic abuse, is something that I haven't really experienced in my personal direct life. What if I? Oh wait, less than it's not been a part of my life, which thankfully. But we actually spoke to an expert who works with human trafficking victims and worked with domestic abuse survivors. This woman, Dr. Samantha Saleh, who basically she helped us understand that domestic abuse goes way beyond the kind of stereotype of the guy in the wife beater or like hitting a woman. Like there's all this kind of psychological manipulation, financial isolation, gaslighting, kind of isolating you from your friends, like all these different tactics that in many ways can seem like good things, can seem to someone's benefit, but in reality they're like designed to kind of like isolate a woman and make her feel dependent on her abuser, which is part of why abuse cycles. And I think that was already present in the script from Madhuri Shekhar, but it helped us so much to understand these things because we often found opportunities to highlight them or to say, so like if you watch the movie, you'll see things that you'll initially think, wow, that actually seems like a good thing he's doing. But then when you'll rewatch it and think back and realize, oh wait, that was totally a manipulation. And I think that's it was a way to kind of like speak to it in a way that's much more insidious and much more terrifying because it's so much more real than just blood and gore and violence, So
yes, that's right. That's right. Because it is so, and it's also very kind of everyday, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like this blood and gore, but it's also kind of everyday where it's just like, wow, I've experienced that in my life. Like I know what that's like to grow up with somebody who is, emotionally that manipulative. Who has a complete control of your life, and they can destroy you. Kind of find to like weave your way out of it without getting destroyed.
Totally. I will say though, for all the horror fans out there is plenty of blood and gore in the movie. So there is definitely violence, as well as the.
I thought it was all emotional.
Exactly. There is its fair share of very intense violence, I must say. But
well, I'm really going to it. So when is it being released, Rajeev?
It comes out October 13th on Amazon Prime, and it'll be coming out. So yes, that's 1 week from. So it's basically 5 days from now, Tuesday of next week. And by the way, there are drive-in events being held all over the United States. Where people can go see it, actually hosted for free by Amazon. So they're free screenings with popcorn, and there's actually cool posters that you can deliver. And there's like these really cool watch events being held a couple of days later where you can kind of like live watch and go through these like cool virtual rooms and things. It's really an amazing array of different things that they're doing. It's fantastic. So
that is amazing.
Yeah, super cool.
Yeah. Are you what are your kind of future plans, yours and Elon's, to like the kind of content that you guys want to kind of tackle? And do you guys want to eventually be like studio heads? Like, is that kind of your thing?
No. We honestly, I think we want to keep making movies. I think our hope is to keep making TV shows and films, primarily. I think as directors, writers, and producers, and I think our hope is to make genre stories that are very character driven with a lot of intelligence that sort of speak to something real. I think that'll always be kind of our mandate. So telling supernatural, sci-fi, action, but with very grounded drama and speaking of something real. And I think our hope would be to basically have a production company that both produces their own films, but also supports other filmmakers. I think the best case scenario would be in a position of someone like we're working with the Justin Lin on a project, and his company, and as an example. And so Lin directs his own movies, but he's just producing this project that we're working with him on, and so it's something where like it would be like I love that idea of like supporting up and coming filmmakers and like supporting a diverse roster of talent. People of color, women, as well as but as well as white men. I think it's something where I love the idea of just having a very diverse array of projects with different people, as well as my own projects that I'm developing. I think that's our hope And I think if I had to kind of like name one director that we'd love to be doing their kind of work, I think it would be Denis Villeneuve. I think it's like, I'd love to be able to go from Sicario to Dune. Like that would be from Arrival to Blade Runner. I mean, that would be the best case scenario, So,
that is so crazy. I was just going to talk about Sicario with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that film and just his work in general. And I think being able to kind of ride that line, or like Alfonso Cuarón, someone who I also admire a great deal. And I think I love the idea of doing a Harry Potter movie. I love the idea of doing, Y Tu Mamá También. I mean, I think it's that kind of range that it's very rare that someone does both, but I would happily be doing Marvel movies. I mean, I think that's where we want to be going, is like bringing intelligence to these kind of like commercial projects, but also doing intimate movies as well. And so that's the goal. That's the hope anyway.
I mean, it all sounds amazing, and it all sounds very doable, Rajeev. I mean, you guys have had long enough of a resume and establish yourself enough to be able to go and tackle these bigger projects. I really don't see why not. But do you ever before the pandemic do you guys ever like sit down and watch your stuff on the big screen and are like, I can't watch my stuff? Like, do you guys go through that? Because I go through that. I'm like, I can't watch.
Yeah. I know it sounds weird, but I know a lot of people who can't watch their material. I've heard that Adam Driver and Woody Allen can't, like, they like literally just like when they're done, they just can't watch it. I'm not like that. I sort of enjoy, even though like whenever I watch my own work, I'm constantly thinking about things I wish I had done differently. I'm constantly thinking about, I wish I had shot this shot, or I feel like this moment's too slow, or this doesn't work. But that said, I enjoy watching it because it really helps me, I think, get a sense of, okay, I know what this is and I know how I want to be better. I'm constantly self-criticizing. I never want to kind of be satisfied with anything. So it helps me to go back and watch my earlier work. Evil Eye, I will watch, at the drive-in. I will watch again during the watch party, and I will watch it. And I will, because honestly, I enjoy the parts that work, and I very much like, and also I think I also find that I enjoy admiring the work of my collaborators. So I enjoy watching how great the cinematography is because of our DP Yaron Levy. I enjoy the costumes, but you like Colin, I enjoy the brush design. It's just like they're like when you work with great collaborators, film allows you to enjoy their work. And I think that's part of why I will never act. I'm not an in front of the camera person. I'm a behind the camera person. So I think I would be like you if I was acting. I would not want to watch myself act. But direct, I'll watch.
Exactly. Yeah, I guess that would be a lot different for me. It's just like sometimes I watch my stand-up stuff, or I'm just like, I can't watch it. Yeah,
I totally understand.
I listen to it. I'm a very auditory person. I'm not. I'm visual. I'm secondary, but I'm more auditory. So for me, it's all about just listening. Like I just want to listen to what's going on.
Got it.
It's always fascinating to me about can we just talk about Sicario for 1 minute, please?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Like obsessed. So I remember watching the first one, and I'm like, what is this badass movie? And I'm like, how the hell is he going to top this one? This is amazing. It's like perfect. How is he going to? Wrong. Mona's wrong. Comes up with Sicario 2, and I was like, oh my God, Sicario 2 is even better than Sicario. The first one.
I have not seen 2 yet, so but I love the first one. Yeah.
Oh, dude.
I'll check it out.
Oh my goodness! Wow, it's just amazing. I watch a movie like Sicario, and I kind of, as a creative person, look at that, and I'm like, man, I'd love to see like a movie like that. That because we have, I don't know if you've heard, we have a lot of good hashish coming out of Pakistan and Afghanistan.
Absolutely.
And I was like, man, I would love to see like the Pakistan of the Afghani version of Sicario. Like, how incredible would that be?
That's good to know. Yeah. I mean that I think there's real opportunity for that kind of thing, because I agree with you. I think there is, we've seen a certain type of story done by Hollywood. Most drug stories tend to do with like the U.S.-Mexico border, or like cocaine trade or narcos, which I'm a huge fan of. I mean, I love a lot of those stories. But you're right. Like I think telling those kind of movies, but in different settings we haven't seen before. Like I love the idea of seeing. I would like happily watch a Afghanistan, Pakistan set Sicario type of story that's commenting on the cultural setting and the drug trade and like kind of the like particular challenges of that place. I think like trick is always going to be what's these like knowing what's specific about that, like why is it interesting, what's interesting about, and of course it is interesting, but it's the why. The why is always the question. It's why every project, especially when it deals with culture, I want to understand what is specific about it, because I think the more I really believe the more specific you are, the more universal a story becomes. I think when you try and make something that's sort of too general, it kind of pleases nobody. Like we go to the movies to be given a window into something, and so I love the idea of like, I mean, that sounds awesome. So and I'll look into see.
You're welcome, Rajeev. You're welcome, my friend.
Absolutely.
Got a lot of cool more ideas coming out of this noggin right here. They usually don't come out, but once in a while they do.
Absolutely.
Usually most of the time. No, I mean, I listen. I'm a fan of yours. I'm a fan of your brothers, and I think what you guys have, single-handedly. And you know what I absolutely love is that you guys are very, and as you are right now, like you guys are very humble about it. There's no like this. Yeah, we're like these people. Brawly guys, you guys are just like, yeah, we do like big shit and we're black teachers, like cool, and
I mean, there's nothing I dislike more in Hollywood than people kind of putting on airs and like pretension. Like I can always tell at a Hollywood party or something when someone kind of thinks high themselves. Like I do what I do, I care about what I do. It is. I know how incredibly difficult it is to navigate this business. To get anything made is so hard. I feel so lucky to be able to have done anything, and I'm sort of always, I'm always aware that like you have to fight to make things that are great. It's so difficult, and so I never want to forget that. I don't ever want to be in a position where I feel so kind of successful or protected that somehow I forget that, because I think like the minute you forget that, your work suffers as a result. And I just care about making great work. So, and I think the work matters more than the ego. So,
Yep. I 100% agree. And now, what kind of? I mean, I know you. I'm sure you have projects that you are working on. Maybe some of them are top notch and top secret.
Sure.
But are you guys? I mean, shooting is completely grounded right now, right, Rajeev?
I mean, it's not totally grounded. We've had a couple things. We've actually shot even something very small that we shot a couple months ago. But
in LA,
in LA,
overseas,
but in LA, but done under kind of COVID protocols. I mean, things are very difficult right now. They are overseas. It's easier. There is shooting happening right now in Canada. There's some shooting in LA, but most of our projects right now are in development. So we're basically developing. We have a kind of sci-fi feature that would be shot next year. We have a TV series actually set in India that we're developing, and a couple of the things that are kind of in like various stages. So we're just trying to figure out, I think, what can be done and what will the industry look like? Like how do we get things done after this? I think a lot has really been. Honestly, a lot of people that we were working with have been waiting for Evil Eye to come out, so they can kind of get a sense of where are we at now. It's always Hollywood's always you're only as good as your last project, basically. So it's like one of those things where it's but we're very, very proud of it, and I think I hope people enjoy it, but I feel like it really does like the best I can say is a film or series represents who I am and what I'm capable of, and like, as long as I can say that, I basically am satisfied, because I just want to be able to say, this is what I can do. If you want to work with me or on one of my projects, that's great. Like, I don't want to pretend like I'm something I'm not. So like my films, I think, represent me, and Elon I think feels the same. And that's what's nice. It's nice to have a body of work, a small one, that said, this is who we are. We want to keep going. So
No, I mean it's great. Are you guys more focused on television? Are you guys more focused on film? What's kind of like, or is it just?
I think it's both. I mean, I would say we have done both. And I think we really enjoyed making a feature. I mean, there is something very kind of like focused about it. I think what's wonderful is that you can tell longer narratives. Like you can kind of tell a broader story. So I think we love the idea of both. I think it really depends on the project. We are developing both, and I think we'd love to be directing both. What I will say is that even though we've done a lot of writing as well as directing, I think we see ourselves primarily as directors. So I think in that sense, features are more of a director's medium, whereas television tends to be more of a writer's medium. You know, the showrunner, the head writer.
Right.
Is kind of the like king of the castle on it. And so in that sense, I think features are kind of like, I think we would ideally end up primarily in features, but I love good television. I think there's a reason why the best filmmakers right now are working in both avenues, features as well as television. So,
do you feel like, remember when being like a film actor was a really big deal in the 90s, and the 2000s kind of began to take a little bit of a dive, and now it's just like actors kind of go in and out of both genres, like out of both, like, I mean, both TV and film, these two mediums.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's now the age more of television than film?
I think it's both. I mean, I actually think there's not the difference between the two is lessening quite a bit. I think that, that we're getting TV series that have filmic, basically production value and quality. I think they're kind of ebbing into each other. So I almost feel like the idea of you being just one or just the other is kind of going away. And like, and I also think you're right that there's a level to which the kind of like celebrity driven series, it's still there. Like the idea of a movie being grounded by Robert Downey Jr. or like something like that, it's still there, but I think it's lessening. I think audiences, there's so much content now that I think we've come to an age where what they care about now is quality. And I think now quality is king, whether it be feature or television. It's just what's something good, and not just good, but what's something unique, what's something new. Like people want to be surprised. I think there's so many streaming services, so many movies, so many TV series that everyone's searching for what's the thing that will kind of make noise, that will pop out for some reason. And that's, I think, part of why actually diverse stories are doing well, because they're new and they're sort of something, it's like, well, our film looks different than a lot of the other films on the services. And that's, I think, to our benefit, I mean, I'll be interested to see what happens though. It's like, I do think it's all just going to merge. I think the idea of, I almost feel like even the idea of Emmys and Oscars will kind of start to merge together, because it's like, there's a lot of questions right now of like, wait, is this movie a TV movie or is it a movie? It's like, is the Irishman a TV movie? I don't think so. Like, so quote unquote, so.
I have a question, Rajeev. Is that a child or a cat in the background?
That is a cat. So
that is a cat.
Yes,
because I do not have a kid, sometimes I cannot tell apart. Now you have a kid, right, Rajeev?
I do. I have two. I have a 7-year-old and I have a 4-year-old. And so 7-year-old boy, 4-year-old girl. So yeah. So yes.
and does Elon have kids too? Do you guys like?
He does not. No.
Wow. So you guys are very different on that.
Yeah. In that sense, we are. Yeah, he's living a very different lifestyle than me at the moment, and but yeah, no, I think he will at some point. I'm not. It's at least my parents are hoping so, but we'll see.
Oh my God, are your parents haunting him? It's like, beta, have a child already.
I mean, they are Indian parents. Like they are very progressive as Indian parents go, but I mean, there's certain things that are kind of like ingrained in a South Asian parent, I think. So
I know all about that. Right? My mom has just given up on me at this point, which is like the perfect place to be.
There you go.
You've given up. This is perfect. Like, I'm never gonna hear from you. This is great. Now, Rajeev, is it just you and Ilan, or do you guys have other siblings also? Is it just
we have 2 step siblings. So we have 2 siblings. Yeah, so it's basically from a stepmom, and but we knew them quite young, so they really are just our brothers. And they're wonderful, and like they're but it's just 4 of us. But really, my brother and I have sort of been kind of on each other's team for a long time. I think it's really been the 2 of us, and we're very close. And we've kind of always gone to, until USC, we had gone to school together, really throughout college and high school. And even though we have very different lives and kind of, very different kind of social circles often, we still like, because especially now we work together, we've always kind of ended up working together. We've always been in business together, and I don't really see that changing. I just think we kind of complement each other, and that's been really beneficial to both of us, so
that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah. Because it's like you have kids and he doesn't have kids, and he's like, hey man, living the single life, and you're just like, no.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Changing diapers in the middle of the night is so much fun, Elon.
It's everything has its pros and cons, and everything is rewarding, and there's always some grass is always greener, but it's no, they're wonderful, and really my kids have given me a lot of perspective, I think, on storytelling and filmmaking, on what matters in the world. Especially this year, it's been it's been a challenging year for everybody, but especially for parents, and I think it's been interesting to kind of observe that and try and figure out.
Absolutely. I feel like Rajeev, did you kind of have like this kind of did you have some kind of like a spiritual thing? A lot of people are just like, the pandemic is really making you kind of step back and really kind of realize what's really important in life most, right? It's not a reality show, getting butt implants or,
right.
That's getting boob jobs. Like, that is not the focus of life. Like, what's really, have you kind of personally been kind of experiencing that throughout this pandemic, or what has that been like?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's the case. It's been interesting that I feel like what the pandemic's really shown me is what actually matters, because when you kind of strip away the ability to go to a restaurant, to meet friends at a bar, to really do anything, because it's like I feel like I've noticed how much less I need. Like, in some ways, like I cook much more, than I did before, and I realize how little I actually do need. And in some ways, I mean, weirdly, my life didn't change that much because I wasn't that social anyway. Like, I'm sort of like, I work a lot. A lot of my day is sitting at a computer writing. So it's kind of like something where, in that sense, but I have felt like I've realized that I just need less, and that it's like it's okay, and like it's sort of like what matters, like what stories you tell, I feel like has been has been affected. I'm very like, what actually, like, we have a very short window on this planet. We don't know what's going to happen, and I feel like we've all been shown how precious and how capricious life is and death is, really, and in that sense, using our time properly matters. And so I'm a little bit more thoughtful about what stories I choose to tell than I think I even was a year ago, because it is like, okay, what's the point of this? Like I kind of ask myself, like, why make this? It's like, why not do something else? And it's just like, and something also, when you, as like any film or TV series you make, like if you make a film, it's minimum a year or 2 years of your life. If you make a TV series, it could be 5 years of your life. Like, it's something where it's a huge commitment. And so what you pitch, you better care about, because you'll probably have to continue to pitch it, continue to talk about it. I mean, I can't tell, I'm on this is interview like 200 for Evil Eye. You know what I mean? Which is like, I enjoy it, but it is like, you realize, wow, I've talked a lot about this movie. It's like, and you better love it, or you're just BSing the whole time, So.
For me, Rajeev, like when I bring my guests on, I like to also, besides their work, I also like to get to know them personally, because everything comes from that, right? Everything, creativity, like everything you have in life, it comes from that place. So, I mean, for you, like artistically, how do you feed yourself? Like, how do you kind of, do you leave the kids with the significant other, and then you're just like, I need 2 hours just to write this out? Like, how do you kind of balance that life?
Yeah, the balance is tough. I mean, like it's definitely tough to do that kind of thing. I feel like I do, like I find myself needing to kind of schedule time really carefully. But I also find that it's like I just, it's very intense. So it's just like I do pay very close attention to deadlines. But I think a lot of the key to it is like, you have to actively schedule time away. Like, you have to tell yourself, this weekend I'm not going to be working. This weekend I'm going to be free, or like, if I go on a trip or something, like it's almost like I have to schedule relaxation or schedule time with the kids because I am the type who I could just work 14 hours a day, every day, 7 days a week, and kind of like not even notice, like time, months, years would pass, and it's not good for you ultimately to do that. And it's something I will freely admit I have to fight a little bit, the instinct to just like, I get antsy when I'm not working. Like it's hard for me not to sort of like want to get back to the laptop. And that's something I've had to kind of learn to fight against. And because I do think ultimately it's like what you lose if you do that, you actually lose life. Like life is like, why make stories if it's not about something? And so experiencing the world, it's like, I think a lot of film students, like they find that they're so concerned about being a filmmaker, they forget that you need to, like something in your life has to inform what you're doing. Like you have to care about something and know about something. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like otherwise, what are you making films about? So,
that's right. That's right. So, yeah. I mean, for me, I don't think I've ever felt so mortal before. I don't think I've ever been so aware of my finite time on this planet. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've ever kind of valued health so much.
Yeah.
Because when you're young, you're just like, oh, I'm young, I'm healthy, and this and that. And then COVID, this pandemic comes along, and then young people. I have a friend of mine, young guy, got COVID. Left lung of his has collapsed permanently.
Wow.
He has breathing problems for the rest of his life. Mm-hmm. And you're just like, wow, this is very, very real. Like this is something that you can just have, or you can die from it. Like this is like death is very, very prominent in a way that I don't think it has ever been for the rest of the world together in modern times, right? Mm-hmm. Like we haven't had the bubonic plague, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Everybody is just like, wow, we are in this death journey together, right? Mm-hmm. There's a death lurking everywhere. It might not affect you, but it may affect, your parent or your uncle or somebody, It's just like,
we've never faced something that was on a global scale, because it's something where I think a lot of other countries, and I think it's something Americans actually like we're facing for real for the first time in a long time. Where it's like it's been a long time since we're seeing Americans actively die. So I think we unfortunately have a capacity to kind of not think about war or famine or illness in other countries, and I think that's unfortunate. And I actually feel like this experience has shown us that the entire world can be affected by something. We could be affected, and as you said, it does matter, and it hopefully helps us have a bit more empathy for our fellow human being. I mean, you're absolutely right, and I'm definitely more aware of my health and of others, and just being more cautious. And honestly, it makes me crazy seeing people being careless, because every time I go out to the grocery store and I see crowds of 20-somethings not wearing masks on Melrose, it makes me nuts. It's like I'm just like, this is crazy. It's just like how I know they feel like they're indestructible, but knowing that they're putting others at risk, and that they may be fine, but they might kill someone's grandmother is like. It's really unfortunate. I feel very frustrated by that, but
absolutely. And you guys have little kids, so you guys have to be even extra cautious, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, nobody's coming home. Just wave goodbye. Just drive by and just wave, and you can just give me a call, right? And you're just extra cautious about everything. Well, I'm gonna start wrapping up, man. Thank you. I mean, this has been such a great conversation, Rajeev. I'm so glad. You're so kind for coming on. And I know the last time I communicated with you was back in 2011.
Sure. No, it's amazing. I know it's like many years ago, but no, it's been a real pleasure. And thank you for, it was just fun to chat. And, it's great.
I am so excited. So October 13th, Evil Eyes coming out on Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It'll be there. And and actually it's part of an entire block of films. So it's part of a slate of interesting, diverse horror thrillers, and they're all fantastic. I've seen them all. So the first four are Evil Eye, The Lie, Black Box, and Nocturne, and we're airing at the same night as a film called Nocturne, and they're all fascinating. I recommend checking them all out, and all produced by Blumhouse and Amazon. So,
and are they Are they all like spooky as hell? Do I have to have someone next to me while I watch them?
They are all scary in different ways. Yes, that's right.
How much weed do I have to smoke just to go to sleep and not have nightmares with you?
Probably a fair amount, depending on the film, and some are trippier than others. I think I would definitely say Nocturne and Black Box are pretty trippy. The Lie is very good. It's a different kind of trippy and dark. So they're just all kind of different like levels.
Okay, so I'm not sleeping basically.
Exactly. But they're all, I will say these are all like it's a buzzword these days, but they're all elevated thrillers. They're all very sophisticated dramas. They're kind of not silly slashers or something like that. These are like very good movies. So it's like something where, like, for those who like a drama, I think you'll also be satisfied. These aren't just quote unquote scary movies. So
sure. They have all these multi dimensions to them.
Absolutely. So
Rajeev, this is wonderful. Rajeev, do you like people to follow you on social media or?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm totally a social media person. I'm definitely one of the people who likes interacting with an audience of the people. So please feel free to follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and please. So.
What's your handle or what's your?
Oh yeah. My handle is my last name Dassani R. So at Dassani R, both on Instagram and Twitter. And so very
awesome.
cool.
Rajeev, you were so awesome, man. Thank you very much for joining. This was great.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Very cool. I will see you, my friend. Thank you.
Cool. Bye.
Bye. That was the wonderful and amazing Rajeev Dassani. I had a fabulous time talking to him. I'm sure you did too. So if you haven't followed me on YouTube yet, please do. You can go to my YouTube channel and follow me there. I am literally at the verge of hitting 600 subscribers. So if you haven't hit subscribe to my channel, please do. It would mean the world to me. I will be back tomorrow, 6:15 Pacific. Actually, no, I lied. I will be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Oh, it's a little early. I know. I'm sorry, regular viewers. 11 a.m. Pacific, because I have a friend calling in from London. He is fabulous. He is doing some groundbreaking stuff when it comes to really, there's more like of a think tank that is bringing together cultures and religions and governments together, and they do some really, really big stuff on a pretty massive scale. So I'm very excited to have him tomorrow, but I will see you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. And if you're not able to catch the live stream, you can always watch it later. Other than that, guys, this was our show today. Thank you very much for tuning in. As always, I love you guys. Thank you for your love and support. James, Mark, great to see you guys. I will see you guys tomorrow, 11 a.m. Pacific, not 6:15. Have a good